Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started for the Business Services Committee meeting on May 29th, 2025. And just so that everyone's aware, we're in the mix right now of adjusting our committee structures with our new board that we inducted on May 12th. And so that is why I'm facilitating business services this evening. And going into June, we'll have our committee structures established and go forward. So with that, do we have citizen comments? Okay, we do not have any citizen comments at this time, so we will move to our for discussion. Item A, Student Information System recommendation.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to come and speak about the Student Information System tonight. Just want to remark how exciting it is that I see the agenda item A as a technology-related item. I don't think that has happened my entire career. And on top of that, right now you're going to hear more words strung together by me than you will ever hear again. So get excited. So I want to talk about our Student Information System. We'll go through, we have our core values, and the purpose of our presentation tonight is to provide a high-level overview of our student information system selection process, and recommend the adoption of Synergy by EduPoint as District 303's next student information system. I'll also share what this change means for the district moving forward from both a functional and a financial perspective. So first of all, I could probably come up here and speak with you every other month about different systems or refreshes that we're doing, and most of those are just a cover sheet. Why does the student information system deserve a presentation? And it's kind of all right here. Student information system is the central hub of everything that a school district does with student data. It handles registration, scheduling, attendance, gradebooks, health records, transcripts, anything you can think of. It gets used every day by just about every staff member, from teachers, admin assistants, registrars, all have worked throughout the day in the student information system. In my world, the student information system is the hub of the data that feeds almost every other system that is in use by the district. Some of those examples are the IEP system, transportation routing systems, cafeteria POS systems, testing platforms. Dozens and dozens of integrations are fed information that is entered into the student information system. It's extremely important that the data that is in the system is accurate and consistent, and that provides a validation across the other systems. If there was something wrong with the data in the student information system, that can quickly ripple out to our other systems, and that's why having the accurate, consistent data is so important. And additionally, it is also the source of data for all of our state and federal reporting. Excuse me. So it's not just a behind-the-scenes tool, it really impacts how we function across the district in every way with student data. So this slide contains quite a long timeline, because we've been working on this for a while, and it covers a lot of ground, so bear with me for a few minutes. Leading up to July 2023, our current student information system had been acquired multiple times by multiple different companies, and even acquired twice by private equity firms, which was cause for concern. During that time, we led to instability and inconsistent support. We had many unknowns during those transitions, and at the same time, we began to see that our district staff were spending significant time manually correcting or validating data for state and federal reporting. Much of these issues tied back to the student information system. Before we decided to look at any new systems, we took a step back and we evaluated our broader data practices, how we collect, use, and report our information, and whether our existing system could truly meet those needs anymore. And during that process leading up to and including the July of 2023, it became clear really quickly that our current student information system was no longer met our operational and reporting requirements. And that we needed not just a new platform, but also a much clearer structure around our data entry, ownership, and data governance. This brings us to the November 20th of 23 column there. At that point, we came to the board and asked you to take action around a consulting engagement with Plant Moran to look at our data processes, how things were entered into the system, what happened with them, and how it flowed through, and to really kind of document that. So Plant Moran came out and they focused on running multiple sessions with dozens of our staff members who work in the SIS across a couple of months. And with that work, they focused on 10 functional areas, mostly around attendance, scheduling, registration, grade reporting, health, and student services across each level, elementary and secondary, and all the information from those functional areas that goes into the student information system. We worked with the consultant to take that information from all of our stakeholders and staff out there and mapped out those current processes of what they look like now. And then in another set of separate sessions, we engaged with our staff to get their opinions on what that should look like in the future and do process mapping of all of that as well as to what it should look like in the future. And if you're interested, there's just a couple of examples of what the secondary scheduling, I'm passing down, process maps would look like, and these are items that we'll use in the future to help inform with a new student information system exactly what these data entry processes must look like to ensure the validity of our data as it goes through the system. From there, going on to the next board action in April of 2024, we engaged again, board action with Plant Moran to issue a formal request for information, or RFI. This allowed our vendors to respond with detailed solutions based on our defined requirements and give us a consistent way to begin comparing our systems. And these last two columns I kind of go into in more detail in the next slide. This is more of a more in-depth look at the actual SIS vendor review. After completing those internal processes, we issued the RFI and we moved in the vendor review, as I just said. In late fall, we used staff input to develop real-world use cases and evaluation criteria to guide that review. 6 vendors responded to our RFI, and our IT and assessment teams conducted half-day demonstrations with each of these vendors, with 5 of the vendors. 1 decided to drop out. And these demos helped us explore how well each system aligned with our back-end functional needs. Would it work for the technical side, the state reporting side, all these things that absolutely have to work? And based on those sessions, we were able to take that and narrow it down to 2 finalists for full in-person evaluations. In February of 25, we brought the 2 vendors in and had staff participate in 4 full days of presentations with sessions organized around those key operational areas. Each session included structured staff evaluations of the functionality, usability, and the overall alignment with our needs for a future student information system. And these were the results from those sessions. Following those final presentations, staff submitted evaluations for each session. These were based on the consistent set of criteria, including the ease of use, reporting, integration, and functionality of the systems. Over 50 staff members participated across different roles: teachers, administrative assistants, registrars, health professionals, and building and district administrators. And I would like to say thank you to those that did participate, because it was 4 full days, 32 hours over 2 different sessions of 2 days in the month of February, where they had to take time away from their regular committed job, work out subs in some cases, and come to this room and with a bunch of unknown people and listen and rate student information systems. Not the most exciting thing in the world, but important work. So again, we thank those folks that did participate. Each vendor was evaluated across all categories, and the system Synergy by EduPoint ranked the highest in 29 of the 37 categories that were put out. And the average tells a similar story. Synergy received an overall rating of 3.44, while the nearest competitor that was a finalist was 3.09. All this feedback reflected strong support for Synergy and from a wide range of staff, both instructional and operational. Based on that input, we are confident in making a recommendation, which I'll walk through here. After evaluating all available information, including detailed staff feedback, system functionality, integration capabilities, and long-term sustainability, District 303 recommends Synergy by EduPoint as our next student information system. So what does it cost? And there's a lot to look at here, but what we tried to focus on was what's the different cost as we go through the year of implementation and then the first operational year. Because if you haven't followed how a student information system implementation goes before, which if you haven't, you're missing something because it's exciting. The first year is considered an implementation year. The system is not live. There's so much that goes into this, which we'll get into in a second, that you're strictly doing implementation in the first year. Second year is the year that it becomes a system of record when you're paying really for the system at that point. So what we're looking at is that currently in this school year, we had a cost and overall footprint for our student information system and some tertiary systems which we use to support it around assessment and some other areas of $234,476. For next school year, we'd be looking at a total of $335,876, a little over $101,000 extra, which is more than our current SIS footprint, but that overlap is necessary to ensure a smooth and well-supported changeover. And in 2026-27, we get to drop off some of those legacy systems and duplicate tools that I mentioned. And the ongoing annual costs for Synergy, including licensing, hosting, and any other services, is $268,507. When you compare that to our current SIS and the redundant systems, it's actually a net increase of just $34,031 for the year one when it is a system of record. So while there is a one-year transition investment of a little over $100,000, the long-term model is really close to our current spend with far more modern capabilities and integrated tools available to us. Just in closing, we mentioned some of that implementation plan. I want to go over that for a minute or two. As with the evaluation process, the implementation will be collaborative and aligned with the realities of the school year. We're taking a full year approach, beginning this summer and continuing through the entire 25-26 school year, and the goal is to ensure a smooth transition for staff, families, and students. First, in June to August, we have a design phase, which runs through the summer, early fall. This is where we'll finalize data governance, review our system workflows, combine these data maps and the other input that we took from staff in the beginning of our engagement, and map out how things need to work in the new system. The next is the structure phase, which is a highly technical phase. Our management and information system staff are looking forward to it and a little afraid of the work that we're going to have to do here, because we have to reintegrate all of those dozens of systems we talked about that were kind of brought in over the last 15 years in the next year. Now it's going to be much easier because things are much more modern, but we're going to have to figure out a lot more of these things on the fly than we've had to do up to this point. So that we'll have the technical side, the data conversion, integration work, and the detailed configuration work done in collaboration with our vendor and our subject matter experts that we had brought in previously, which are registrars, admin assistants, health professionals, teachers, and others that do the actual work in the SIS throughout the day. Into December and January, we move into the testing phase where we take those same subject matter experts and ask for their help again to try the processes out. Are they working according to the maps? Can we make these the official processes? And does it work as you see it in the system? Work through that, and then from February through June, and this is typical of a student information system implementation, we'll run a soft launch. So the new system will be live, include hands-on training by your role, and running Synergy in parallel with our current student information system, which is a big ask for everyone, but it's generally the way this goes. I've been successful running it in a few other districts, and it is the recommended way to run it from our student information system vendor. And this lets staff build familiarity while still having the existing system as our safety net. Finally, on July 1st, 2026, we would go live with the Synergy Student Information System as the official system of record for student data, and at that point, the old systems would be retired. We've designed this timeline to give everyone time to adjust, which includes staff, families, and the systems, which will take a little bit of time. Structured to minimize disruption and maximize support. Are there questions I can answer?
I do. First of all, thank you. Obviously, a huge undertaking to go through all of this. And so my question is about that portion of time where you're going to be running both systems at the same time, right? And you mentioned like it is going to cause some extra work for some people. Is it the kind of extra work that will require additional staff, like support staff for anybody, or it's just the expectation is that everybody will spend a little bit more time doing these tasks?
Yeah, and we don't have it completely mapped out yet because we really want to lean into the student information system vendor who can't go that far with it until we do have a contract. But they've been through this dozens and dozens of times, and they have a special amount of experience running actually from our current sys of record to Synergy. So we're really encouraged about our success possibilities there. There is going to be a little bit of expectation of some extra work, but more in the framework of this is training for the new system while we accomplish the work of our existing system. And then there'll be the opportunity to work in the new system as you have time or as you work throughout your day if you want to go over and try it over here. And then that'll tie in with other multiple hours of training based on the role that you have that'll be going along throughout the school year.
Thank you. Okay, one more question. Right now, the district is using Schoology for the grade book and also as a learning management system. And so I'm assuming that will continue and that would just get integrated into this?
That is the plan. The Schoology is the learning management system right now, and there's a grade book integration. There's some consternation with the current student information system. That is definitely not perfect. We believe it'll be much better. We're not going to know exactly what that's going to look like until we get there and we're actually doing it. Of course, everyone says now it's going to be perfect, if you believe that. But it will be better, and we'll work that out and make sure everyone is trained on how exactly to make that happen at the time.
Thank you.
I'm curious, so the February through June, when you're running both of them, does that mean, like, are teachers taking attendance in both of them every day and entering, like, how is that working? Are they going to be using two systems at the same time for everything?
Nope, we wouldn't ask them to do that. It would mostly be doing your regular work every day in the system of record, the old system, and having the opportunity to do that work at times in the new one. We wouldn't ask you to do that every day, but we would ask them to take part in that once a week or whatever they needed to get comfortable in that during that time for several months. Like, do it whenever you're comfortable during these training times, or we'd encourage you to practice whenever you can. But the parallel system, that is not the system of record yet, is really just practice and not an expectation.
More of a sandbox that you can go in
Exactly.
and use when you want to?
Exactly,
Okay.
perfect. Term.
And then the cost increase of about $35,000, do we have a contract that guarantees that price for a certain amount of time, or is that just for the first year of implementation?
Contract can run through 7 years, and you'll see small increases every year, as is typical of software of this nature.
Okay, thank you.
I have a few questions. So what available reporting? Is there stock reporting that we'll be able to get out of this system, depending your role and so forth, or how will that work?
Yeah, and that's all been part of the evaluation process. I mean, looked specifically at that demonstrations here with staff. We're bringing on their analytics module, so it'll be a much more robust form of reporting statistics and dashboards than we currently have or currently have easy access to. Right now, it would require an awful lot of work either from Mr. Shazar's staff or my staff to get that sort of data out, whereas now we're going to be able to present an awful lot more meaningful data to those who need it through established dashboards and reporting, in addition to being able to build custom reporting for items that are necessary.
Okay, thank you. And then I had this Schoology question, so thank you for that. My other question was the flow of the data. Is it going to be a flow out only, or will there be some level of data from these other ancillary systems that comes back in?
Yeah, you know, I don't think I can answer that for sure right now. It's extremely rare that we would write back to the student information system from others. For very minor reasons here and there, but we're very careful about that at all times and make sure that that workflow has plenty of governance over it to make sure that it doesn't impact anything in the wrong way.
Okay. For the overall average ratings, what's the scale that was used? Is it 1 to 5, or like how should I look at the 3.44 other than it's the highest, but
4.
out of 4?
0 was non-existent, I don't use it, I don't know. 1 was the lowest, 4 was high.
Okay. And so, where are the weakest? Where are the weakest couple of areas that we're going to see with the system?
I don't think we had anything that I would consider weak.
Okay.
In comparison to the other system, where you see the difference there is there was some items around special education, specifically in the other system, which is really where you see the difference. But nothing was like, this is alarming in any way, shape, or form. It was all, this is good enough, good, or great. And we could provide those ratings to the board if you would like. I do have them here with me, but it would take me a little while to work through each individual one.
Yeah, but a three is a good.
Yeah, 3 was, I can definitely use this, this works for me. 4 was like, wow, this is better than I thought of.
Yeah.
2 was, I can make it work, but I really don't think we should have to. And 1 was, if you get this, I'm going to be mad at you, if you want to kind of put it in terms. And there really were everything, both of them rated very well.
Okay.
EduPoint was a more mature product. They, you know, any question that somebody asked, they had experience with, oh yeah, you guys do this and people do this and you walk through this and here's the workflow and here's how it goes. And I think that really gave a lot of confidence to the people evaluating it. As Matt said, I don't think anything rated low. The one module that rated low, we really wouldn't replace anyway, and that was a pure special ed module, which we would not be replacing.
Okay.
That data does come into the system and present what's needed to staff, but we're not replacing what all of the reporting and documentation we need to do with special ed. That was really the only one that rated questionably.
Okay. And I have 2 final questions. So what other school districts are using this that we look to?
There's several in the area. Geneva right now is making the same move from eSchool Plus to Synergy by EduPoint. The Yorkville district is on it. Aurora East 131. And then there are several others that I could provide, strictly in Illinois.
Indian Prairie 204 is one of them.
Yep.
I've gone to it. This is actually the system that seems to be, as people are leaving our current SIS, this tends to be the one that's preferred by most people. As we've looked around, like this is one they seem to be going to as well, which I think was, yeah.
And I've been through past pieces of the data conversion from one student information system to the other, the place where you find the most unknowns with a vendor if they have not moved from one to the other. And this particular vendor has made several moves that we are aware of from our current student information system to theirs. So they already know the ins and outs or some of the gotchas that we're going to run into.
Okay. And then my last question, where I probably have the most worry, I guess, is around the testing. So is part of the plan that we will have dedicated scripts and all that? Or how are you thinking about that?
Mostly the testing phase is going to be workflows. So somebody goes in, they need to enter something. So it has field level validation.
Yep.
So we go in, is everything entered? Is there any gaps we can do? Does it go through? Does it come out the end?
Yep.
In terms of like software testing, we're not doing like a software testing. That's
No, I'm
Yeah,
not talking
it's
about
really use
exactly what
case.
you're
So,
talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, so working with our subject matter experts in the area, like help us design this, help us do the workflows, put them down in front of it. give them a script, say, basically, can you do this? And the hope is, and I think it will be, intuitively enough, with a very little, like, they'll be able to get through it. That doesn't mean that's how we're doing training, but that's how we're gonna go through with it. I will tell you, for me, one of the biggest things is field level validation. So in some cases, we just don't have to enter data in the field, but that doesn't tell us much. You have to enter data. There's pop-ups on the screens, you can't, Matt talked about what we did prior to getting to staff. I think we were all very impressed with both of the brought forward, that really all of that's taken care of, like taking care of the data. This is where I'll bore you to death, like, my ones and zeros need to be ones and zeros and they can't be empty, so.
Right. And so, do you even have any thought yet on how many use cases you're gonna have, or testing scripts, another word for it?
I think one of the things we're gonna find in this one, there's a lot more we can do. We'd mentioned some redundant systems or ancillary systems that we're just gonna be able to full on replace. There's a lot of other things and ways people do business that tend to be, I refer to it as the District 303 staff found ways to make everything work. We're gonna find ways to make those work in the system, to take that work away from them, so to speak, like you don't need to do it. So I'm gonna imagine there's gonna be a lot, and there's gonna probably be a few more that we're not seeing right now. But I think the thing that I'll just say I'm most comfortable with is they've been around, it's a mature system, the way they did the presentations, the way people threw questions at them, and they spoke to it with experience. And then the data validation pieces inside of it, and then quite honestly, the fact that they've converted many of the current one, as Matt said, like they've seen it, done it. I have a lot of confidence in it, but yes, there's gonna be a lot of testing and going through and checking and try to put bad data in and see if it comes out, see if it doesn't allow it in, make sure it's calculated the way it does. But a lot of that's gonna be with EduPoint going through and doing that.
Okay, thank you.
Gentlemen, would you just quickly talk about the parent interface ability? I know that was an important piece that came through it, which would be very different than our current system.
I thought we were gonna have the big reveal and surprise later. Okay, here's a surprise. I'm sure many people, maybe I'm biased, but many people love Hack. Just start off with the name of it, Hack. But this is a true parent portal. I think one of the nice things is there's a native app you'll be able to carry on your phone, the things you'll be able to do in it. One of the big things is, attendance. I tell the story of the first time I forgot to call in my son. I got the message on my phone. I was at a stoplight, and before it went to green, I was able to log in, click, and did everything I need to do, and it's done. His attendance was taken care of, and I got a thank you letter. It's modular based. We'll be able to upload and store PDFs. So like individual score reports from certain things that are here and there and everywhere, we'll be able to put them on the student. You'll be able to have your student's information there. I think of it like a mini LinkedIn, if you will. My history as a student, all of my accomplishments and things I can store in there, have them available. I truly think the parents are gonna really like this. And then back to that whole idea of training, that'll be part of, they're one of our users. So somewhere towards the end of the school year would be an opportunity to start introducing this to parents. Like, you're gonna have a new login, you're gonna go to a new place, here's where you download the app. Talked about even just, even through the summer, like, come on in, we're gonna have an open afternoon. If you wanna come in and sit down with us and open up the app and go through and learn how to use it, like, make those available. Usually when you switch systems, there's always a little bit of a stickiness to the old system just because it's familiar. I'm not worried about that at all, moving to the system. This is probably the one time in my life that I think we're gonna win out of the box just by bringing in a new system. So, I don't know if you...
I have just a quick question about the costs. I don't see any cost built in for teacher training. Is that going to be done during regular contract hours, or is that something that'll be added in?
It's going to be built in around the school day. It's not in there because these are the costs of the system. So as we bring teachers in, some of it'll be during our opportunities where we have time in the day across days. Some of it'll be available afterwards. At that point, we'd have to bring in extra to do it. We need to make sure everybody goes to the training. The teachers are really going in. It's going to be attendance. It's going to be referrals. It's going to be the transfer to the grade book. And those will be built in towards the end of the year when we get into it.
Anything that we would need to do outside of the contracted hours is something that we can handle within the technology budget already.
All right, move that on. I want to publicly thank these two. When I first got here, quite honestly, I was aghast at our system. And as these two know, we had a number of cabinet meetings where I was more in disbelief around our current system and where we were at. And these two have taken this task on, and this is an enormous task to switch systems in an organization our size, but they've done it with such professionalism by continuing to work the problem, having so many people involved. And as Matt said so beautifully, and not the most exciting thing to come in for 34 hours to sit, but that we had so many people across different roles and responsibility in our organization be able to give feedback. And it's really, truly dedicated to these two for leading this work for the past. They had to hear me complain for a year, so I'm going to count that as part of their work. And then this past year, these two have really lifted this work up and championed it. Hardest work will be going forward, once the contract's signed and the work's going forward. But thank you to the two of you for your work and your dedication to making D303 better for everyone with this data system.
Yes, thank you, and we'll put that on action.
Thank you.
The next item B is the Mid-Valley Financial Report for April.
Mid-Valley is reporting that revenue received to date is higher than the prior year, and that's mainly due to the increased non-member tuition payments and increased earnings on investment. Overall, their expenditures are also trending ahead of the prior year, and there are no areas of concern at this time.
Okay, the next item is the D303 Financial Report for April.
Revenues trending ahead of the prior year due to an increase in earnings from investments and other local revenue. The state does continue to make regular EBF payments, and the district has received a third of 4 categorical payments from the state, and we anticipate the last categorical payment will be made before year end. Expenditures continue to trend slightly ahead of the prior year, and this is mainly due to the district-wide construction projects, and there are no areas of concern at this time.
Okay, next item is item D, the Treasurer's Surety Bond.
So this is an annual process. The Illinois statute requires that the board acquire a treasurer's surety bond each year. The bond amount this year is going to be $25 million, which is approximately 10% of the money that the treasurer has custody of. The bond has increased about $5 million from the prior year, and we recommend that the board approve the treasurer's surety bond to be filed by the school's treasurer with the ROE.
Questions? Okay. Okay, and that one can go to consent. Next item is item E, capital projects transfer.
So this is an annual transfer from O&M, operations maintenance, to the capital projects, and it's to cover projects included in the 5-year capital improvement plan. This resolution authorized completion of the permanent transfer of $3 million from O&M to capital projects, and as it was specified in the budget.
Any questions? Okay, so I think that needs to be action, right, since we have that resolution? Okay. Next was the Mid-Valley tentative fiscal year 2026 budget.
Mid-Valley has provided their tentative budget for the 25-26 fiscal year for your review. The budget has been previously approved by the Mid-Valley Governing Board. Any questions regarding the budget can be directed to Matthew McDonald, the Director of Human Resources and Business Services at Mid-Valley.
Questions? Okay, that one's action. Professional services renewal cycle.
So in a previous committee meeting, board members requested a list of all the professional services with renewal cycle dates. Included in your packet are a list of the primary services that the district engages with. The vast majority of our services are on multi-year agreements. There are 3 that will be up this year. They're the 3 that are on single-year agreements. 2 are with the same vendor, GSF, for our night custodial and our athletic towel service, and then Quest runs our high school food service. There are also 4 that don't have expiration dates. They're just at board discretion. So legal counsel, construction management, architect, and banking.
Okay. Any questions on this one first of all? Dr. Gordon, this one really needs to connect with some of the work that's happening with the policy committee, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so we can talk about those more in depth at the first policy committee meeting.
Yep, all right,
That sounds good.
thank you.
Yep.
Okay, item H, which is renewal of food service management contract with Organic Life for 25-26 school year.
So last month, we brought all of the high school, and this month, we're bringing all of the elementary and middle. So this is for the renewal of the contract with Organic Life for the 25-26 school year at our elementary and middle schools. It includes a 3% increase, which is equivalent to CPI, the food away from home rate.
Okay, so any questions on that one? Okay, so that can go for consent. School meal pricing for 25-26 school year.
So this is not only for elementary and middle, this is also high school and includes all of the adult prices for any of our staff members that choose to purchase food from any of our cafeterias. We are proposing a few updates to our meal prices. It looks like 25-cent increases generally across the board. The majority of that is to bring our rates in compliance with the Federal National Food Service Program rate. We actually had a rate set last year of $3.85. We did not get up to that. We still actually don't get up to that with our elementary school lunches, which is fine because our food service program is healthy, so we're not necessarily required to. But we try to track along with that as closely as possible in the event that we do need to start following that, and it does make a difference. So we're requesting price increases for these items, the elementary and middle school breakfast, lunches, and high school breakfast and lunches.
Any questions? Okay. Okay, that one we'll do for action. J, elementary and middle school, à la carte pricing.
So this is very similar to what we discussed last month with the high schools. We asked Organic Life to look at their à la carte prices and only recommend price increases where food cost was the driving factor. So we do have some increases that are proposed between 10 cents and 25 cents on certain items. The list is attached in your packet, and that is solely due to increased costs from food suppliers. That is not increased overhead or profit.
Any questions? Okay, we'll do that action as well. Transportation update, item K.
All right. So tonight, I'll just be providing a quick update on student transportation in District 303. In this presentation, we will review our current operations, trends over the past few years, and then the rationale behind some key decisions related to routing and eligibility. So as is normal in our process, we want to ground ourselves in our core values. Our work in transportation aligns with the district core values, particularly responsible stewardship of resources, equity and systems of support, and honoring the dignity of every student and family. These principles really guide our transportation planning and decision-making. So this slide shows 3-year trends. While our total number of buses has decreased slightly, we've actually increased our in-house special ed routes in an effort to eliminate or at least significantly reduce the number of outsourced routes. That's a conversation we've been having over the past few years, that we're trying to bring as much in-house as we possibly can and try to reduce all of our outsourcing. So most school districts have watched their transportation expenses grow significantly over the past few years, and we are no exception to that trend. Our costs have grown from $7.8 million in fiscal year 22 to just over $10.2 million in fiscal year 24. The increase is really driven by increases in fuel costs, driver wages and benefits, and the expansion of the special education transportation program. This context really is important as we continue to evaluate efficiencies and future needs in the department. So routing is an annual planning process that begins each summer. We don't just copy the same routes year over year. Our transportation team works really, really hard every summer to build the routes based on where students live, and then we group neighborhoods to maximize efficiency. The final routes are then adjusted during the first weeks of school as we respond to the real-world conditions as the drivers are actually out there dealing with traffic and whatnot. So based on Illinois school code, only students that live more than 1.5 miles from their school are entitled to transportation, unless there is a verified safety hazard. When we receive a request for evaluation from a parent, or when we believe, based on staff feedback, that there is a potentially hazardous area, we'll go out there and conduct assessments using Illinois Department of Transportation criteria. So an important note is that IDOT's guidelines restrict us to focusing on permanent hazards and not temporary issues like inclement weather during a few months of the year. The board then reviews and approves all of these designations annually unless we have changes to the designations or additional hazardous routes that we bring mid-year. So we're often asked why District 303 doesn't offer a pay-to-ride option for families who live within 1.5 miles of the school. And while some districts do, we've chosen not to pursue this model due to a couple operational, equity, and financial concerns. So operationally, we don't have the staffing or the fleet to add routes just for fee-paying students. So our existing buses and drivers are prioritized for students who are legally entitled to transportation, particularly those in special education or those with approved hazardous routes. From an equity standpoint, offering transportation on an ability to pay does create an inequity. We believe that transportation decisions should really be based on safety and eligibility and not necessarily a family's ability to pay for it. And then financially, the state does not reimburse for students under 1.5 miles unless a route is deemed hazardous. So in most cases, the fee revenue that we would collect from a pay-to-ride option would not cover the actual cost of the service. So the district would end up subsidizing the program for those families. And for those reasons, District 303 has not adopted a fee-based model in the past and continues to focus on just providing safe and equitable transportation to eligible students in the district. Are there any questions about our current transportation?
I do. So have we pulled back in?
We may have some singleton routes out there, but for the vast majority, McKinney-Vento is a little bit harder, just because we can be going all over the area. So McKinney-Vento, we have not pulled back in. Special ed, I believe by the end of the year, we had pulled in, if not all of the special education routes, there were maybe one or potentially two that were still hanging out there. But we had pulled in the vast majority of our special education routes and really weren't contracting anymore.
Okay, and does the analysis make sense still in terms of cost? Are we still, by pulling all those routes in, are we still ahead?
It does. It's more difficult to gauge when you look over the past few years just because of the fluctuation in drivers. So we would start to get ahead and then we would start to lose some drivers and then we'd have to contract back out. So we really haven't had a solid length of time where we haven't had any outsourced routes. So it's a little bit more difficult for me to say definitively right now it does or does not make sense. I believe that there is the control factor and the fact that when we do it in-house, it's our staff, it's our equipment.
Yeah.
We can work with families more easily and we're not beholden to the contract agencies. I think that means a lot. But from a pure financial standpoint, we have not had, because of the fluctuation, we haven't been able to get really solid data for me to answer that question.
So next year then probably would be the
Hopefully.
first like stable year to
Fingers
evaluate
crossed,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. And then my last question was, can you review what the standard policy is per Illinois school code that we're following to determine that 1.5 miles?
Yeah, I don't actually have I can find the actual statute number for you. It is written in school code that transportation is legally required for any family that lives more than 1.5 miles from their school, or under 1.5 miles if there is a hazardous route that's been deemed using the IDOT guidelines. When I say 1.5 miles, there's been a little bit of confusion over what the point-to-point actually means. The starting point is not the doorstep. It's the end of the driveway. It's the curb. The ending point is the normal point of drop-off at the school, and not necessarily the nearest entrance to that person's house. So the normal point of drop-off could be in front of the school, could be the side of the school. It's normally where cars or buses would drop the students off. And that's where we're measuring, where we should be measuring from. So to your point, I'm glad you asked that clarifying question, because I believe that there has been some confusion about that recently.
So if, a way to think about it as far as the school, it's really going to be like the main doors.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. Any other? Go ahead.
Related to that, so if you were to take like an aerial view and measure, that is different than how the feet walk, right?
Correct.
So is that how it's being measured, is like an actual footsteps, right?
Yeah, so we use our routing software, Versatrans, which is pretty commonly used by public school districts, and that actually measures the walking path, not necessarily as the crow flies
Right.
or at the normally traveled roads for cars. It does measure what a person would actually have to walk.
Okay, and then my other question is about those hazardous routes. So when you've received feedback from a family to say like, we think that there's cause for concern, are you finding that when you do these, when you're looking into these, are you finding that some of them are actually hazardous routes?
Sometimes, most of the times when we catch them, it's because of our staff, the bus drivers that are out there driving the routes that will come back and say, you may want to take a look at this route. That has happened very infrequently recently, just because our boundaries haven't shifted much, and except for a couple years ago. But we have most of the hazardous routes covered. When we do receive that request, we go out there in person and we'll sit there and count cars. We sit there for at least an hour, making sure that we get a good count. We go out there in the morning when the traffic will be heaviest, as parents and students are making their way over to the school building. And we actually evaluate in person what that looks like. There's a checklist that's given to us by the Illinois Department of Transportation where we assign points. It's pretty objective. There's not a lot of room in there for, well, we don't really want to provide transportation. It's pretty cut and dry, whether or not points are assigned for certain things or not. And I think one of the things that I've gotten feedback from families is what I touched on a little bit, that snowy and icy weather, well, it does create some hardships for walking to the school buildings. That actually can't be considered according to the Illinois Department of Transportation. They'll reject the application if we submit one because of weather conditions. It has to be a permanent hazardous condition. So railroad crossing, 4-lane road, 6-lane road, no crosswalk, no stoplight. It has to be something that's permanent, and not a temporary condition that creates a little bit of a hardship.
And then the last question is this distance, has this increased recently? Did it used to be like 1 mile and then it increased? Has it always been 1.5 miles?
It's been 1.5 miles as long as I can remember.
Okay.
Yeah. There may have been changes, but at least going back into the mid-2000s, it's been the same.
Okay, thank you.
The only other thing I would ask Dr. Gordon is, would it be possible to, I think it would be timely to give another update like this to the board? I just don't know the time, like when the routes are finalized.
How about that August,
Yeah,
or that September one, as we kick off the school year?
yeah, yeah.
If I don't know where the first board
We
meeting
can
in August
figure
falls
out.
versus the first day
Yeah.
of school.
Yeah.
So probably right around
Okay.
there.
That'd be
We'll add
perfect.
that.
Okay. Okay. Capital improvement plan.
So the intent of the capital improvement plan is really to provide a framework and path to address the needs outlined as part of our master facilities plan and our continued large. So tonight we'll review the plan for the next 5 years from school year 26 to 2030. So some of the stuff you'll see tonight is repeats from last year, but with new board members and also as a refresher for the community, we'll kind of go over some of these key indicators for our buildings. But as a frame of reference, our district spans over 2.1 million square feet between our schools, operation buildings, administrative centers. And with that extensive footprint comes a deep responsibility and a firm commitment to maintain and care for all aspects of our facilities. And so this includes not just the interiors of our buildings, but our playgrounds, the exteriors, our sports fields. So we recognize that while well-maintained environments support our student learning, our staff productivity, and our community pride. So ensuring the longevity of the safety of our infrastructure is a core part of how we are stewards of our resources and invest in the future of our district. So as you know, we continue to update our capital plan to help guide and prioritize how we'll tackle facility needs across the district over the next 5 years. This plan gives us a clear direction for managing our capital projects, everything from major repairs and upgrades to replacements, all within our available funding. So while we've identified current priorities and set them over a schedule, the plan is meant to be a little flexible and responsive to the emergency needs of our districts. It will evolve over time, and as new needs arise, or conditions or funding changes, we'll adapt and be flexible. But our goal is to make a really smart and strategic investments that will take care of our portfolio so they remain safe and functional and supportive for our student success. The current priorities that we'll see schedules a plan that will form the foundation for our next 5 years, a starting point for the planning, accountability, and transparent decision-making in our district. So what qualifies as a capital project? Really, when we talk about capital projects, we're referring to the big stuff. So the major construction work, large-scale renovation, these are typically come with a larger price tag, typically involve design, engineering work, and include longer lead times and major coordination and careful planning. On the other hand, the facilities team oversees the operational budget of our grounds and facilities. Those are the smaller, more routine things, smaller equipment replacement, minor adjustments to a BAS, painting, door replacement, and things like that. So the multiple sources of information have been developed and utilized over the last couple years to develop that initial plan. This included the facility assessment that was completed by WOLD, as well as input from the Citizen Advisory Council in 21 and 22, the safety and security improvements, and also the space needs allocation that we've been working with over the past couple years. But I'm happy to say that great strides have been made in all of these areas, with some of the highlights here in red. It's no doubt that our community has started to feel the impact of this progress. And really, with our updated plan, not only will we continue to work on our goals outlined through these previous sources of information, needs, and the goals that we've identified, but we're going to continue to add to that initial list. So every time I bring you an update to this, our buildings will be 1 year older. So as an example, the 10-year needs that were outlined in our facility assessment, that list is already 7 years old. So the original years 11 through 14 are now things that we need to continue to identify and prioritize within our capital plan. But some great example of work that we've completed over the last couple years. Our AC, we had 3.8 million allocated in our assessment for AC. We had a large amount of money dedicated to eliminating the mobiles at all of our facilities, improving the LRC. So piece by piece, we are accomplishing these goals. So it's really exciting on the trajectory that we have been on. But we have another busy summer here with capital project season again, starting tomorrow. So, we vary a lot. But roofs, parking lots, more AC, more access control, flooring. So we're excited as we continue to work in tandem with the buildings to provide the support. But really want to recognize on these capital projects, there are a lot of key players that make that happen. Not only my facility teams and construction architects that are in the fields making it happen. I really want to thank Dr. Gordon and the board here for providing that support and making this happen over the last couple years. Your guidance support has made a huge impact in us being able to accomplish these major things the past couple years. And then finally, I want to thank the administrators and the staff in the building because they put up with us, they put up with the dust, and they worked alongside of us. So thank you just to D303 for sure. So but at the end of the day, all the work that we do is not just for our buildings and the assets, it's for the work that happens in and around our buildings. So with that, what I'm going to present to you is the update for the next 5 years of our capital improvement plan. And again, this is to ensure our infrastructure is ready for the really important things that we do inside of our building. So much of what you see here over the next 5 years is what you may have seen last year when I presented this plan. There are some minor changes. The Richmond addition has become smaller. We did spend a little more on the AC work than originally anticipated due to the increased cost for the equipment and the final designs there. I've added some tennis court work to this just based on need and age. And I've also added some gym floor replacement, again, based on end-of-life cycles and the current condition. But other than that, the other key components down in more of the parking lot programs, roof improvement programs, things like that have stayed pretty consistent. I don't have it denoted here, but I will point out that there are a few projects on here that we do have some cost share opportunities and that we have established. For example, our playground improvement, this is our share of the total cost of our playgrounds. And we have that joint partnership with the Park District on many of our facilities to improve and replace our playgrounds on a cyclical basis. But looking at that, the 5-year our spend, and breaking it out in 2 different categories. We have about 23% of it, or just $7.3 million, is towards making major changes or additions to our district. And really, that 23% occurs in the next 2 years with the Richmond addition and finishing up the AC work. The remaining 77% of our capital plan is just replacement and maintenance of our infrastructure that we already own. And breaking it down into a little different format, this outlines how the money is distributed between different types of projects, such as roof improvements, mechanical, safety and security, and things like that. So really what we need to talk about is how do we continue on the trajectory that we've been on the past few years. So many of our buildings are showing visible sign of wear, and we're still working up to catch up on deferred maintenance from past years. The Band-Aid approach is no longer working with much of our infrastructure. We continue to prioritize essential maintenance of our current funding sources that are not sustainable for our long-term health of the facility. So it's important that we start to think strategically about alternative funding options to ensure that our infrastructure can support our mission well into the future. And these discussions aren't about immediate discussions that we're setting, but we're setting a long-term path forward that responsibly addresses our needs for our growing district. And as I show these snippets, I want to recognize that we have a ton of good too. and the major improvements that we've made over the last couple summers has really been a testament to the funding that we've put towards it. But we leave it at our 5-year capital plan still does not cover all the needs that have been addressed in our previous assessments and recommendations by our committees. So we have some major accessibility modifications that have been discussed, building automation. We've recently done an assessment of our aquatic improvements and just understanding what are those needs for those pools that we have in our district. So I just want to highlight that our 5-year plan is really outlined based on our available funding, not necessarily all of our known needs within our building. Another major need that should be pointed out is really to continue to think about that long-term viability of the access program within our building. And so this is just, this is not a topic of conversation today, but it's just highlighting conversations that have been had at past committee meetings and board meetings to talk about what that means for our district going forward. And as always, we're going to continue looking at other funding sources. A major potential win that we may see over the next couple months is some incentive programs that we've taken advantage for the LED lighting. So when we did our assessment with Wold several years ago, we had just over $18 million worth of lighting needs that were identified in that assessment. We've connected with the contractor through a ComEd incentive program at our buildings that are supplied via ComEd. And we are potentially looking at doing a retrofit of our lighting systems to LED at almost zero cost to the district. So at those 6 or 7 buildings, that's going to reduce our overall $200-something million need by about $5.6 million at almost no cost to us. So we're really exciting, and we'll have an update for you guys here in the next month as we test a few rooms with this proposed system. But with that being said, our teams are finding those alternate options for us to be able to accomplish the needs within our building. And one additional option that we have to start the conversation about tonight is with our health and life safety bonds, and so I'm going to pass it over to Dr. Attaway.
So we've talked previously over the past several years about several funding mechanisms for our capital improvement projects, but one that we really haven't talked about is health life safety bonds. To qualify for this type of funding, projects need to be identified through the 10-year health life safety survey that's conducted by a licensed architect or engineer. And that really is done to ensure that all the proposed work is essential and it's aligned with regulatory standards. So common projects that would be included in the HLS survey would be fire alarm and sprinkler systems, roof and masonry repairs, accessibility improvements, or security enhancements. So several of the projects on the capital improvement plan that Amanda just presented, as well as many of the projects that are still outstanding but are not included on this iteration of the plan, would qualify for this type of funding. If the board is interested in exploring this avenue further, I would recommend that we invite Bob Lewis and Jennifer Courier from PMA to join us for a longer discussion about what health life safety bonds actually entail.
So with that, I'll leave the proposed 5-year plan up here on the screen and open up for questions.
I have a couple. I'm wondering if we can present the spend as a little differently and specifically as it relates to the bond issuance, because I guess I would like to be able to see, we had our bond issuance almost a year ago, and then what has been the spend down of that and where we're at. So what we used it for and where we're at. Does that make sense?
It does. That's something that we can report back to the board.
Okay. And then I would be interested in the rest of your thoughts related to the health and life safety bonds. I guess where I'm coming, I'm not suggesting that we move into additional debt, but I think more information to understand it would be helpful.
Yeah, I'd be interested in learning more.
Okay. So I would say if we can.
Yeah, I'll reach out to PMA and let them know the upcoming committee schedule, and we'll schedule a longer discussion on that.
Okay, and then my last thing, more a comment. With the exception of the culinary arts piece. And honestly, that has been on the list for almost close to 10 years at this, if we follow this track. But yet it's also it's part of the career cluster for the high school transformation. So I would just like to invite us to have a further discussion on how do we get that reprioritized, or how can we fund that?
I think those would be a fantastic conversation. I think they would be even better conversation in light of the health safety conversation, as Amanda so eloquently has placed out here. We are in the trying to keep up with the basic needs right now.
Right.
That's what I'm continuing to be incredibly worried about. You saw those pictures. Those weren't glamour shots of our district. They are serious concerns that are occurring throughout our district. So currently, the funding that we have available pays for us trying to keep afloat without doing exactly what you're talking about. Anything beyond, anything that is visual out there, like a top-end culinary lab for both of the schools, which is significant dollars and definitely needed. You're absolutely right. Day I got here, I heard about the culinary labs. Those are issues, but we have those same pieces throughout our entire district. The piece that I think continues to worry me on an ADA side of thing continues to be Davis, continues to be Wild Rose. It continues to be some significant issues of just accessibility for individuals who may have some mobility issues. Wild Rose is a great example. You have to, if you have some pretty significant mobility issues, you have to go all the way around the building to enter the building. Forgot the statistic. I believe it's somewhere between 50 and 60% of all Davis elementary classrooms are either have to be accessed through stairs, either up or down. So that creates those pieces. So we have significant needs within our district, and most of them are our sidewalks, our driveways, our roofs, our HVAC. Absolutely nothing that gets people excited, but essential to open our schools each and every day. And what I appreciated what Amanda has done in her team, back to slide 24, we're looking at alternative ways to stretch our dollars. I believe the district's going to need some infusion of dollars to move us forward in the future. So we'll pair those two conversations with a health and life safety conversations when we bring in outside experts to help the board navigate that conversation.
So I see that you mentioned on slide 23 about the access program growth. I think that's a concern of mine because I don't, and maybe I'm missing it, but I don't see anything for Anderson specifically. And as we know, moving the access students has been very disruptive. And so I would like to make sure that there is a long-term plan to make sure that that program can stay in that school. And what would that entail cost-wise and construction-wise?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've started getting wrapping our head around what that would mean financially and starting to look at locations and things like that, bouncing off with our architect. And we'd be happy to continue those conversations. I think, it just comes back to, with our available funding, what are we able to accomplish in our current state?
Yeah, that'll be a good aspect to add to that conversation. When we think about, we'll just use Coron for an example. The west end of our district is where I'm most concerned about student growth and populations. We still have a community that is still building each day and adding students to the west end, and that continues to impact us. So we want to make sure long-term viability as we've moved the access program to Coron, that we have the additional space to continue to welcome in our new families who are building in a development and that are being sold on a day-to-day basis. Last time I checked, there's roughly still 35 lots to be sold, and it's a hot area and it continues to be sold. So I think it's a great question that we can surround all of these conversations long-term about that, because we recognize what a 3-classroom addition at Richmond is costing us is roughly $4.5 million. So what does that look like at Coron and potentially others? So we have that, because our goal was to have 3 elementary schools with the access program on them, similar to a Coron that has that extra auxiliary space within them, while still recognizing we don't want to limit our community growth into those schools as well. So it's a really challenging topic, but one that I think would be best served by a bigger financial conversation, and then these conversations from how do we get culinary labs, how do we ensure that we have access programs that have long-term sustainability, and how do we address a number of the safety concerns, health and life safety concerns that have been on our list for years and at our pace. Because this pace will drop significantly once as you mentioned, the $24 million is all expensed. We're dropping back down, and one of the charts, you're going to start being down into the, single digits of construction being done every year, which will significantly reduce the pace in which we're able to move through things.
Just the only other comment I would make, I don't think that, I don't
see
want
this-
to wait until they're able to come.
I think we can absolutely have them in
Yeah.
parallel. I
Yeah.
100%, I don't think,
Okay.
yeah, I think we need to have them. You have to have both of those pieces to be able to have a better context of how do we do this? Or we just sit there wishing and hoping.
Right.
And that's no fun either. But I totally agree with you.
Okay, I think, thank you, this was great. Information and discussion, I think we all appreciate that. Next would be the item N, annual fire special service and testing bid.
So the fire systems within our building are required to be tested and inspected on specific frequencies, and then also reported back on a cyclical basis. This needs to be completed by a trained professional and then reported back. In the past, an annual contract for this work has been below the dollar amount needed that requires board approval, but due to some substantial increases with our current vendor, we took the scope out to bid to solicit a competitive pricing for this work. 4 bids were received this month for this 4-year contract. We are still under evaluation with the lowest bidder here. It is the intent to award the lowest bidder, but we are just completing a few additional checks this time, and so the final recommendation will be brought for the board at the next board meeting.
Okay, so the timing, so that, I was a little confused by the recommendation. So the timing is going to take place on the June 9th
Correct.
board meeting?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Do it, action.
And I should point out that this is a 4-year contract, but as part of the bidding scope or the bidding process, we did require the vendors to put their annual price each year for the next 4 years. So we do understand what that full total cost is for the 4-year contract.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Next one, item N, North High School cafeteria furniture replacement.
So North High School looked into investing in some new cafeteria furniture that will create more diverse and functional spaces for students to gather, collaborate, and relax during their lunch and free time. By offering different types of flexible seating options, it's a more welcoming environment and aiming to foster a sense of community and enhance that school culture. So staff engaged with educational environments to explore different seating types and options for the North High School cafeteria. After multiple site visits and connections with building administration, a plan was developed for a furniture replacement plan, as shown as in the attached documents. The purchases are being funded through the North High School's school budget, and would be coordinated and installed with the facilities department. So some of the pieces do have a 16 to 18 week lead time, so it's anticipated that all these items would be installed in the fall. But administration is recommending that the board approve a contract with educational environments through the Omnia contract in the amount of $167,825.66.
I would put that for action. And then item O, Norton Creek interior classroom improvement.
So due to the increased student enrollment numbers at Norton Creek for next school year, staff has been working alongside building administration to put together a plan that allows the school to increase by classroom size. Several different modifications are happening to accomplish this, but the major one on the list is to create an open, or to take an open space that called a pod space within the existing footprint of the school and building it out to be an actual classroom for next school year. So this will require various trades, including framing, drywall, some fire alarm painting, things like that, to create this space within the school. Staff engaged with Dreesen Construction to accomplish this large scope. This is a company that we worked with at other schools to accomplish similar things in smaller scale. And so we're looking to gain board approval to start this work in June. And the total contract amount would be $48,825 for this classroom addition at Norton Creek.
I have a couple things I'd like to ask about that. One of the things I'm wondering is that community is going to continue probably to grow. We have 2 developments that are still in construction, right? With houses and condos that are not yet occupied. And so, do we believe that this is going to be a long-term solution? Do we believe that once we add these classrooms and change these spaces, that Norton Creek is going to be functional for 5 years to come?
We'll have
Or
to continue to trend and see how the projections are lining up with the actuals for the school year. But it definitely is a conversation that we have to continue to have, and we're creating several other buildings as we continue to hit those, max, available classrooms there for the students. So in talking with the administrative there, we're adding 2 classrooms and making these modifications, so that's a huge increase. And we believe it to be sustainable for the next 5 years, but again, we'll have to continue to kind of track those projections.
is what's being built in the Commons a permanent classroom structure, or is it temporary? Okay.
Walls, floor to ceiling.
Okay. So as far as like sound and safety, like it's a main path in the school, so.
Yeah, but by the point that we have, yes, it is in the main path of the school, but it'll be right across the hall from other classrooms of similar nature. So the construction of it will include proper insulation and things like that to help with the sound within the space.
What will happen with all the current furniture and everything that's in the Commons now?
I don't have an answer for that directly. Furniture within the schools is utilized very heavily, and it can quickly be repurposed to other areas within there.
Okay, thank you.
So what is the school losing by not having this area?
Yeah, great question. Well, several different modifications are happening to accomplish this goal for this summer, or for this next school year. One of them, we're losing the dedicated what is currently the dedicated teacher's lounge, and we're moving a classroom into that space. It's built just like a classroom space, so it's an easy transition for us. But due to that modification, we are creating a teacher's lounge in another area of the school. Not part of this scope, but we're taking 2 existing large-size kindergarten classrooms, that are 2 of them, and dividing it into 3 spaces, with that 3rd new space to be the teacher's lounge. So that is another scope outside of this that's occurring. And then within this collaborative space, or this pod space that we're building up walls and creating classrooms, I couldn't speak completely accurate on how it's used right now, but it is definitely collaborative gathering spaces. So staff will have to find ways to possibly use LRC or other areas within that school to accomplish those same results. But I think this is a testament of the way that our communities are growing and having to have our buildings be really adaptable and changeable to accommodate those classroom needs.
So how does Norton Creek compare to what the demographer and all of that analysis?
I think we're still really close to where we're at with the demographer's piece. Dr. Rich brought up one of the communities that what we've seen in a very recent, the yield rate on the condos and apartments is greater than what we anticipated or what has been modeled in the past. Part of it is this generation, part of it is larger financial concerns within, trying to buy the typical first house for that age group of parents. So what we're seeing is more people renting the condos, and these are high-end condos over by Norton Creek. So we are seeing a higher yield rate than what we were projecting even just 2 years ago. Okay. And those models, what we're hearing from the demographer, they're starting to make those changes nationwide on the yield rates, because those yield rates have been holding strong for many, many years. But that's the area that we see our yield rates change, is around apartments, condos, townhouses, and then in our community, I believe it's called the Springs, those are higher end. So it's producing more than what we had anticipated. Overall, currently, we're still, Norton Creek is still within those bounds. I think the other one, we're doing okay, but it's Fearson Creek is our next one. They're the ones with the ponds of Stony Creek who are still being built. They're the ones who are kind of subdivided between us and U46 is the other district it splits with. So they're the ones with roughly 35 homes yet to sell. So those areas are on our radars as concerns as they continue to grow. Today, we're okay. I think it's, as Amanda said, it's the next couple of years, how do those communities get filled for both?
I have a weird side question, because I just don't know how it works.
Yeah.
But I know that there were several families, I'm not going to use the right words for this, but when the boundaries changed, they asked for an exception to that, to stay at Norton Creek. Is that exception for the tenure of their, do you ever look at that, or are they guaranteed to stay at Norton Creek no matter how the
Yeah.
population changes or grows?
So one of the things that we did change last year was if you were granted inter-district transfer, you are now you are now a member of that community until you graduate.
Until you finish fifth
Yeah.
grade? Okay.
But I'm just trying to think about Norton Creek. I'll get the actual Norton Creek inter-district transfers, how many were outside and who were granted in for us.
Or who will,
Yeah.
even as of next year, right?
Correct.
Because some were just fifth graders who wanted to stay for their last year, who will now go
And
on
that was
to
the
middle
larger
school.
group that Mr. Buxton oversees that, and that fourth, fifth grade group were the ones that
Yeah.
were granted more than the K1, 2s. But I'll make sure that he gives an update at the next board meeting around inter-district transfer, because we've opened that up. That started May 15th for our elementary friends. Last time I heard, it was roughly 50 people who've applied, but he'll get some accurate data and more information on the questions that you asked, Dr. Rich.
That'd be great, thanks.
And can I,
ahead.
I was going to say, and I apologize, I didn't come better prepared with the information from the principal, but in a sense that the overall population of the school may have not hit exactly, or it's trending with what we previously thought. But when a specific grade level has a couple more kids than we anticipated, we only have so many kids in one classroom, so that forces us to pop a new section. So if one grade went from 3 to 4, and we otherwise didn't have to space, that's what we are creating here in this situation.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, and then I guess my question is, are we confident before we make all these adjustments to the kindergarten classrooms that we're not going to see?
Yeah, and in talking with the principal even just this morning, this is our need for the next 5 years minimum. This is a need to divide this space.
Where we feel most confident, quite honestly, is in that K2 range because of the continued lower birth rates. That continues to be true across our district. We are seeing that consistently. Where we have this really weird D303 piece is we have such a large move-in rate between 3rd and 6th to 7th grade. That's where we get the influx of families who didn't start with us in either preschool or kindergarten. That's what that continues. That's what RSP kind of pulled out for us during that process was, oh boy, you guys aren't, you're going to feel that low birth rate pretty quickly, and that's what we've historically done in this district. And, it's more a testament to D303 and families wanting to be, raising their children in this community.
Okay, next item P is the St. Charles Park District playground.
So the St. Charles Park District and the Community District 303 have been longstanding partners in providing maintenance and servicing many aspects of our facilities. This partnership really has benefited all parties and continues to be a fruitful endeavor for our school district. One of the agreements that we have with the Park District is for our playground development and maintenance agreement. A copy of the new maintenance is attached for your review, but our current agreement expires this June. And so we have been working alongside the Park District and our attorneys to review the agreement and look for another extension, another 4-year extension of this agreement. Just as background, this agreement provides a cost share for our playgrounds for the maintenance and the capital replacement of that, as well as some additional features such as tennis courts at Thompson and things like that.
Any questions? Okay. Next would be the Wild Rose concrete stair replacement.
So there are various components of the exterior elements at Wild Rose that are starting to show advanced sign of deterioration, and they require a substantial amount of work, specifically concrete, railings, and paintings. The double staircase on the southeast side of the building currently has a bay out of service due to some concrete that has continued to spall out, coming loose in various areas. So we worked alongside Bear Construction to put together a scope and to replace this stairway as well as replace the railings within that area. And we're looking to complete this work this summer along with some other minor exterior improvements at the building.
Any questions? Okay. Okay, next, item R, Phase 3, district-wide AC equipment and labor.
So I'm hopeful that this is the last AC project recommendation I'm bringing to this board as we currently have set out. But this recommendation is for our Phase 3 multi-site cooling project. This specifically will provide the final steps to providing air conditioning to the gyms at Redling Middle School as well as North High School. Some of the work at North is starting this summer in terms of some ductwork replacement within the gym. But the rest of the scope, including all the equipment and the ductwork at Redling, is included as part of this last package that was put out to bid. So Wold Engineers worked with their assessments and mechanical engineers to put together the specifications and drawings for this project. We did put it out to bid, and the low bidder, Premier Mechanical, was deeply vetted by Wold Architects and Engineers, and with their understand their experience and their bandwidth for accomplishing projects of this size. After that complete vetting process, we are recommending awarding this project to Premier Mechanical in the amount of $2,744,300.
Questions? Okay. Okay, next is going to be our annual district IT renewals.
So we have several previously board-approved renewals that we renew on an annual basis, listed individually, but it's been our practice to put them together in one line item. If there's any questions, I can answer them.
Wireless projection refresh.
Originally, wireless projection, which allows any staff member and student, in some cases, to connect to a projector without needing to be tethered to the wall. It's been in place in the district since 2018. Hardware is now aging and becoming difficult to maintain and rely on, and we recommend replacing it with the VV solution.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Consent as well, I think. Next one, iReady, contract renewal.
3 years is up. It's time to renew our iReady contract. Excuse me. We are bringing a 3-year contract again. We get about a $51,000 savings by doing a multiple year. iReady is used as our district benchmark assessment platform. We give it 3 times a year. It also has lessons. I believe the number was somewhere around 1.72 million lessons in the last 3 years that students have completed in grades K through 8. So it is a widely used platform.
Okay, that one will go to consent. The next one was the Qualtrics contract.
Good evening. Our current survey and analytics tool is Thought Exchange. And looking at its use over the course of the past year, I've seen it's pretty much just been used by the communications office for broad feedback, primarily on the cell phone advisory group's process and the procedures there. Looking to move to Qualtrics, which has a wide range of K-12 clients and a lot of experience in tailoring the analytics tool to the needs of department leaders, school leaders, and allow them to do more analysis of data. So we see this as a significant upgrade from Thought Exchange on capabilities and versatility, and we recommend ending the contract with Thought Exchange and allocating the budgeted amount to support implementation of Qualtrics.
Is there any financial impact to ending the contract?
It's about a push. We got a significant one-time discount when we started with Thought Exchange, which we don't think we would continue. So it's I think like $3,000 more than what we would probably have with Thought Exchange.
Okay, but there's no penalty for ending the contract. Okay. Any other questions? No. Okay, we can move that to consent as well. And then the last one is the Clear Residency contract.
So currently, when families register, we're limited to verifying residency really through reviewing tax records and requested lease agreements, which don't always provide a comprehensive view of whether or not someone lives within district boundaries. So we're seeking approval to implement the clear residency verification system that really would be used to address this challenge. It uses publicly available data, essentially to give us a metric of how likely a family is to live within our boundaries. So nothing invasive, it's all publicly available information, but it will help us verify that everyone who's in our schools, every student that's registered in our schools actually lives within District 303 boundaries.
Is this going to be used only for new registrations, or will you be going through students who are currently in our system?
We'll be going through students that are currently in the system, so the first time we use it, there will essentially be a mass upload into the system. So we'll be checking every student that's currently on our roster in addition to new families that move into the district.
And how do you handle that if you come across students who are not currently in our boundaries?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a conversation with the families most of the time because there's nothing definitive that comes out of the CLEAR system. The information that we gather there is used to engage in a discussion, ask them to come in, meet, and essentially present the evidence and then walk through the process from there.
Whose role will that be?
We'll move that to the safety coordinator that we're my office as well.
So not building principals?
No.
Okay.
No.
Great.
No. This will be a district function that we work across the entire district. Good question. Yes, this is not a individual building process.
Okay, this should be action. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So then, any future agenda items on the docket that you're?
The big one that's coming back in June will be the tentative fiscal year 26 budget. We're advancing it 1 month. Normally that would come in July, but to give Ms. Porter an extra 30 days to get herself settled, we're going to bring it a month early.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good. Well, do either of you have any agenda items you would like to see for the future? Okay. Okay, then we'll go ahead and adjourn at 7:02 PM on May 29th. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.